Welcome to the Talkin' Shed podcast with your host, Adam Fennig, where we talk all things farm equipment. Tune in as we interview farmers, industry leaders, and talk about our own dealership story. Follow along as we talk about topics like cover crops, nutrient placement, and things that make your farm and every farm across the country different. You're listening to the Talkin' Shed podcast, and thank you for tuning in.
Well, guys, I'm Adam Fennig.
I'm Cody Cisco.
I'm Margie Fennig.
And I'm Jim Fennig.
You guys are tuned in to the Talkin' Shed podcast. Today we're down here at the Louisville Farm Show, and we've got Grandma and Grandpa with us. And a lot of you guys maybe know them from the delivery side of it. We've sent Grandma and Grandpa across the country delivering and shipping, and so we thought it'd be great to get them in on the podcast. They're down here with us at the show. Let's first talk about the show and how it's been so far.
Yeah, yesterday was the first day. It went pretty well for the most part. Got a little slower there in the afternoon, but today, the parking lot was packed full.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's been pretty good. A big crowd. Tractor pulls were good from what I hear last night. And it's always good to get together with a bunch of people. You guys walked around the show maybe a little bit more. What do you guys feel?
Today was busier than yesterday, and today it was like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
Walking around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't been in the big room really other than yesterday morning, but I'm sure they've been busy up there. I talked to the guys at Salford and Yetter, and it was pretty busy.
Yeah, I know David sent me a couple
there
of
was
leads.
a lot of people in there this morning when I came through there, yes.
Yeah.
It was very busy.
Right. So we're going to start as far back as we can go. Let's start off with, I guess, what got you guys in agriculture in general? Maybe back to, growing up, did you guys do 4-H and FFA? Or I guess, today, if most people don't know, we farm back home as well. Grandpa plants the corn, harvests the corn and beans, and but let's go back. We just celebrated a birthday. What was that?
Okay, yeah. I just celebrated my 79th birthday last week, and was glad to have the family in for that, and we had a good time.
Yeah. So from there, what got you, like I said, into agriculture, and where did it start?
Okay, well, it kind of started at a very young age. Living on the farm was the only place I had ever lived. My father was a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer, and we all worked together. And as I grew up and become old enough to help on the farm, well, they gave me a lot of responsibility. And we had livestock, and back then everybody had a few chickens and some hogs and milked a few cows, and that's how we did it.
I always hear the story of how they would raise the turkeys and the hogs in the woods. Did you do some of that?
Yes, we did that. We had a feed company nearby that would contract turkeys out, and at that time they liked the woods idea of putting them in the woods because it was cool in the summer, and one flock is all you would feed per year. You'd get them in there like in May, June, and then by August, September, or late September they'd be ready to go out. But that was a learning experience that of course they've changed that whole process now where they put them in a barn, and it's much different, but that was quite an experience in itself.
So growing up, like you said, you guys farmed and stuff. What was the typical practice, of course, when I think of tractors of that age, of course, 40-20s come to mind, but you're going to laugh. And, what were things like at that time?
Okay. At that time, everything was pretty much spring plowed with usually a tractor. Back then, if you had a tractor big enough to pull a 3-bottom plow, you were a big farmer. We only had a 2-bottom plow and a tractor to pull that, but then as time went on, we did get a larger one, and in fact, I remember the time my dad bought a 2-cylinder John Deere with a 4-bottom plow. I mean, we thought we were big farmers, but we weren't. But when you look back on all the changes that have taken place in the ag industry and the way the farming practices have changed, it's you just wonder how can it change that much, in 50, 60 years like
Right.
it did. But yeah, it has changed a lot.
Yeah. And Grandma, your background as far as ag and farming, what experiences did you have?
I grew up on a small dairy farm, and my father worked away from home and farmed some acres on the side. And I was fortunate enough to be in the barn in the mornings milking cows before school, and after I got home in the evenings I did that. And I didn't help out in the fields that much. I was more around the cattle. And then after I graduated, I always said, I don't want to marry a farmer. I'm sure I don't, because I am tired of milking and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But things have a way of working their way out. And I met your grandpa, and one thing and another, and we ended up getting married. And believe it or not, I did not have to milk another cow after I did marry him. And we have just had a wonderful life together. We will soon celebrate 58 years together, and we're just so happy for that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware of the 58.
And 4 children, 4 boys we had.
How many grandchildren?
And now we have 12 grandchildren and on 9 great-grandchildren on the way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Wow. Jerseys?
Jerseys is what I milk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I was very active in high school. I was in a lot of intramural sports, and I was a cheerleader. And my younger sister, 3 years younger than I, said that she really got dumped on a lot because I have to admit she probably did, because I was quite active to be able to get out and do those things. And my mother was wonderful, filling in and seeing that I was able to do those activities.
Right. So, 4 boys.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think one of them would be a girl eventually?
Mm-hmm. I did, and we had the 3 boys, each 2 years apart. And then 13 years later, we had another boy. And just so thankful and praise God that everyone was healthy.
Yep.
And we would love to have had a girl, but we are just so thankful that we had healthy babies.
Right.
And that means so much.
Right.
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
And basically the whole time you guys have grown up somewhere around the farm there, Coldwater, just west of Coldwater. If you guys have been to our shop, you know kind of where I'm talking about. So you guys have, in a roundabout way, you know the area pretty well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. In fact, we live in the house where I was born and raised, 70-some years ago. So it's a different house, but the same property.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yep, and if anyone's been back to our conference room in the back side of the office, you can see some of the pictures of progression, and you can actually see the house Grandpa's talking about. A car kind of took out the original, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they rebuilt that when, you think?
In the late 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, 1988 or 89.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, growing up, were you mainly running green equipment?
At first, it was all red. My grandpa was a big international tractor driver, and so that's kind of what we went with. Then back in the late or early 60s, I guess it was, when we bought the first green one. Why, that kind of changed things a little bit, but we've been green ever since, and it's been a good life, and I've enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. So, you farmed growing up pretty much in the area. You have the 4 boys. What kind of places do the 4 boys bring into it, and where do they take you? Of course, it has a lot to do with why we're here today, but as far as farming and when you're young growing up on a farm and you have 1 kid and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and they're all boys, how does that change the trajectory and get us pretty much to where we're at today?
Okay. Well, the boys were always on my shirt tail. They grew up with me out on the farm pretty much. They were with their mother at times, but it seemed like whenever I was out the door, they were right behind me. And they grew up with it. They seemed to enjoy it. And as they grew up, they followed my footsteps in 4-H and VOAG and got involved in all those programs, and it's just been a good life for them.
Yep.
Yeah. And then brought them into the business as we're in today with the equipment. 3 of the boys are involved in that, plus Adam, the grandson, and the other boy, Todd, works with, he's a UPS driver out of Saline, Ohio, and he's still around the farm and does some work with the cattle. And they're still showing cattle. They have two kids right now that are old enough to show, and so they're still in that.
Right, and when people come to our shop, they pull in. I think part of the times they're not sure if they came to someone's house or if they're at a cattle feedlot or what's going on. So what all is going on?
Well, it seems like there's a lot going on around there. There's something every day that I can do or I can find to do, and it's in fact we also have a crop insurance business that myself and another fellow started back 25-30 years ago, and the boys are still maintaining that business also. And without that office that we have there to help run the insurance and the equipment business, why, it takes a lot of people around there to keep track of everything, and they do a good job of it.
Right. So, we've got the cattle. There's probably 25-30 head of mama cows in there.
Right.
So Ryan and Todd are kind of raising them on the show cattle side, selling some bulls as seed stock. So when people pull in and see the cattle, that's what that is. And then, of course, you guys live there.
Right.
And you've lived there since
1989.
Late 80s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And and then I was going to bring up the crop insurance. I remember the crop insurance actually being ran from the basement of the house.
Right.
When I was growing up, it'd be hard to explain over the podcast, but we had a big barn, hand-hewn barn, your typical old barn. I don't know when that thing was built, probably 1890s.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and the crop insurance business, which we'll dive into what kind of got you there, that was ran out of the basement. And as I was growing up, that was the only business there. And I remember when we bought the first cow, Stella.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
She lived out underneath that old tree.
Yeah, you're right.
And so that was the first cow on the property, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And but so when people pull in, I get it all the time. People, they kind of slowly creep in. They don't really know where to turn, but I understand it. You know, you got the cattle, you kind of got everything going on. But let's back up to the crop insurance. You briefly mentioned that. At what age did you jump in there, and what got you into something like that?
Back in 1988, we had a severe drought. I think we only had they had maybe a total of 2 inches of rain from the time we planted corn till August. And things were just drying up in basically over the whole state of Ohio. And I had a friend that was an adjuster, a crop insurance adjuster for claims, and of course they were overloaded with work at that time, and so he came to me and asked me if I would be willing to just ride along with him and help do some of the paperwork and stuff. So I did. And that got me started in the insurance business. I was working as an adjuster and did that for several years. And then I gave that up and went into the sales part of it and obtained my license and was selling along with another fellow, and we built the business, and the boys are still keeping it going today.
Yeah. And from what I remember, that was always ran out of the basement, like I said, and that's a big reason. From what I remember, 2008 is when we knocked down the original barn,
right,
and put up what we thought at the time would be a crop insurance office and a really nice shop that we thought would be a really nice place to work on our tractors and maybe a hay bine or a baler. And then we even put a middle bay in there for cold storage,
right,
to keep our tractors out of the sun, which is where they live today. So walk us through, everyone says when you build a shop or an office, you can never make it big enough. Well, boy, did we screw that one up.
That's for sure. Yeah, I think about the first week after it was up and the doors were on it and they shut the doors and we looked at it and we thought, well, why didn't we make this bigger?
Right.
And so after a little bit of renovation, we took a wall out between those two bays, and now we have a little larger area there for the shop guys, and it's getting us by right now, but for how long, we don't know. But the office was intentionally, as Adam said, really for the crop insurance. But I think, as I walk in there today, I think there's four girls working in there, plus a couple of guys, and
right,
maybe 3 guys sometimes, and of course the salespeople are in and out, and also then we took the original machine shed, I call it, which was a metal frame building, and now we have it stocked with parts for the equipment side, with the Yetter parts, Salford, and whatever else that we have there that we need to keep on hand. But
Yeah.
we do have a good inventory of parts.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when we used to work cattle in that machine shed.
Right.
I remember that. Yep.
There was a time we had cattle in there. I remember when it was that dusty dirt floor. I don't know where that dirt came from, but it was the dustiest dirt around.
Right.
And there was a wood burning stove in there.
Yeah.
That was our shop stove.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
We put that tarp up across the first section there.
Yeah, and those doors were the hardest doors to ever shut.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I remember at one point, I think we've pushed them closed with a tractor before because that tin would just bend
Oh yeah.
perfectly, and you could never get them shut. But it was, we built the new shop and office and everything in 2008, and I believe the equipment started in 9-10 range. So
Right.
we quickly, almost immediately, outgrew the facility. And if you look, I I need to do a video sometime on those pictures on the back wall to give these guys, a good feel of what we're talking about. But I remember when the grass stopped at the machine shed, and I remember the island that used to be in the driveway.
Right.
There was like a little tree there and the gas tanks, and then there was. Then of course we just kept pushing west, and we pushed west until we ran into a road.
Right.
And then we went south a little bit. So who knows where it's going to end up? But of course, the equipment side of things is the whole reason for doing the podcast. But I wanted to get Grandma and Grandpa on here, and we're going to dig into the delivery side of it, where the places they've been, some of their favorite places. But I wanted to back up and talk more about the past and what kind of got us here. What did you guys think of Dad jumping ship at Coldwater to try and make this thing float?
Well, we knew it was going to be a big adjustment around the farm area. Of course, not knowing how big it was going to get and how fast it grew, but it has just really opened up my eyes to what you guys have been doing out there, and how fast this business is growing. It's just unbelievable. But there again, we're very thankful for our customers that we have and for the business that they give us, and it has turned out to be a very good thing.
Right. When I barely remembered. I was in college, and I didn't really know what to think of it. There was definitely points there where you wondered, was it real, or was it just kind of... I remember we would go up to the Young Farmers auction, and I think we sponsored the dinner or something, and we had some row cleaners sitting there, and just the early days of going to all the small... You and I would go to Ada. Remember the Ada stuff?
Oh, yes.
But it's a long road, but for you guys, you had to at some point think he was crazy.
Yes, I would agree with that. Never really told him that.
Yeah.
But
Gary was always a worker, always in there pushing, wanting to get things done, accomplished.
Pushing would be a good word, right? Debbie?
Yeah, I'd say.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because he was at Kohler Implement for 25-ish years.
something like that.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, what if we wouldn't have knocked that old barn down in 07, 08 range and built the office? We might be working out of the haymow of that barn right now.
That could be.
Yes, that could very well be.
It was hard to believe when we tore that barn down. That's been there for years. Are we doing the right thing?
Right.
It was just such an adventure, but it's all worked out very, very well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. I'm in the house, and to look out the windows and just see the activity, the traffic is just mind-boggling. I have friends that will come up once a month or a couple times, and they just can't believe the activity that vehicles in and out and semis and so forth. And it seems to be a very, very, very busy place.
Well, it's a slight hazard for you getting in and out of your garage.
Sometimes.
I mean,
Sometimes.
And the little grandchildren are there sometimes, and we've got them convinced that when they want to go out to the office to get the mail, that you go out and in front of the trucks and
Right.
vehicles.
Right.
Because it's just not safe to go through the barnyard like we used to do.
right.
Yeah.
So it has worked out well.
how many times have you came home from getting the mail and pull in, and all of a sudden here comes a semi, and here comes this, and the forklift, and the telehandler, and
Yes.
we kind of need a traffic controller out there.
But everybody's so good. We all just kind of wait on each other, and eventually it all gets moved and so forth. But it's cute how the semi drivers, the guys that work around there, are all real good in accommodating that. I mean, there might be times that I'd say to Jim, well, I have an appointment at 10 o'clock, and the way things look out there, how am I going to get out?
Yeah.
But it always works. Someone's always around to help.
Yeah, I wonder how many truck drivers across the country have called the lot home for a night.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure some of them might burn up some brakes doing it too. They just blow right by.
Yeah, there was one there last night. Salford
Was there?
Tool, yeah, Salford Tool showed up last night. So
Really?
yeah. So I'm always amazed at the traffic that comes in from across the country. You know, there right now as we speak, there's probably a truck driver on the road somewhere with his GPS with our address punched in.
Yeah, heading there.
He's either carrying a Salford Tool or some tanks from North Dakota.
Yep.
And you just never know.
Right.
Someone's going to pull in at some point, and
Yeah.
they've been heading your way for a day or so. You know, it's amazing.
Right.
It is.
But
Back to the, what you might say, a little bit of the fear factor of everything. As I look back, you know, the companies that we deal with, you know, they pretty much started coming to us and saying, hey, you know, we'd like to see things happen, we'd like to see this happen, you know. And yet our company especially, they stepped right up to the plate for us and worked with us very well. And then Valmar and Salford and all the companies that we deal with, you know, have been very good helping us out, and we appreciate that very much.
yeah, we're very lucky to have the people that we do. You know, and most of them are here. We've got Jeff Worley.
Right.
Of course, he's from Illinois, but you know, he's number one. And then, you know, you've got the Salford boys, and the Enduroclass guy was here yesterday.
Yep.
But to be able to meet them, it kind of puts some skin in the game for them.
Right.
You know, we don't deal with people that are just looking to load us up with inventory and kind of run. They're in it with us, and there's no way we could do it without them. And
Yeah.
especially Jeff Worley,
Oh,
he
yes.
was the first one to jump on board. I remember, if we've interviewed Jeff before, and if you listen to him, he'll say that this whole thing started on a napkin, and it did.
Right.
I was there. I think it was me, Ryan, Dad, and Worley. And I'll never forget, I told Worley, I said, you know, I told him, I said, you guys really need to step up your advertising game a little bit. And I don't think he really liked that. But, yeah, you know, when they stick their neck out like that, he's guided us. He hasn't steered us wrong. And he's made us the largest Yetter dealership that there is. And he has a lot to do with it. So you're right. Without the guys from the vendors,
Right.
it'd be a different ball
Right.
game.
Look what that napkin, starting out with that, has ended up being.
Right. Right. And it could have went a lot of different directions.
Yep.
But
Yep. Yeah, Worley was explaining to us last night over dinner. He said, "Yep, it's deer seating, us."
yeah. Yeah, in rankings of
Yeah.
dealerships.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the we had a Salford meeting there about a few weeks ago when we had the snowstorm up there at Salina, and we had Joe Yaw there, and he bought the first Salford tillage tool we ever sold. And I bring him up from time to time to Dad because I was there when we sold it. I'll never forget it. Dad and we went out to work on his planter, and we were just changing blades, and Joe came out and how's it going, and we started talking. Of course, Dad's always wanting to know more about their operation, and pretty soon we start talking tillage tools, and Dad says, yeah, you know, we carry the Salford lineup of tillage tools, and he said, well, do you have anything? Because this was getting to be spring. We're planting corn in about 3 weeks. And I said, well, we got one tool. I think it's an 18-footer. He said, well, quite frankly, that's about all I can pull. Well, anyway, it wasn't 3 hours later he had signed the papers on that tillage tool, and I was blown away. I mean, I was probably a freshman in college. I had no idea what had just happened. We probably, were out there working for free on a Saturday afternoon, and I'll never forget it. And so I told Dad before the Salford meeting, I said, you should call Joe and see if you can get him to come. And Joe showed up, and it was cool. He still owns that tool, and Dad always says that he always tells Joe, if you ever want to sell that Salford, you let me know. Dad wants to put it in a museum or something. But I know the way things are going now, if it hits our lot, we'll be able to sell it in a few days. So I don't know what he wants to do with it. But to have him there was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's you always think back to the first of everything. And I know where the first Salford tool is that we sold. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've heard you and your dad talk about Joe, and I never knew him until that night. But I went up to him and talked to him after dinner, and got to know him. And he's a real nice guy.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he enjoys farming and just up there by Spencerville. Mm-hmm. But now your guys' role in the dealership is pretty wide. Obviously, you guys kind of started the entrepreneurship with the boys and invested that in them and instilled that in their minds, the work ethic and the discipline, mainly with the insurance business. But today, you guys are doing a lot with deliveries and getting parts and pieces to where they need to go. Well, being down here at the farm show, you guys made 3 trips down here?
Yes, we did last week.
Yep.
Bringing equipment in for the show.
So over the last, 5 years or so, do you remember whenever we got the flatbed truck?
The 454?
Yeah.
Yes. What year?
I don't know what year, but it was at this show.
It was at the show.
That's right.
I remember that.
We drove it home from this show.
Yep.
That's correct.
I'll never forget it because I don't know what year it was. I'd have to look back. But you and I took it for the first spin.
Right.
We took it out here, and we brought it back. And I think we went and asked the guy if he could fix or check the shocks because it rode so rough. We thought maybe there was a stone stuck in the tire or something. Well, it's still stuck in the tire.
Yeah, it did ride kind of rough. But
yeah, well, we needed a 450 to be able to tow some of the equipment around that we have. But yeah, I remember we bought that thing at the Louisville Farm Show.
That's right.
I'll never forget it. It was on display in the Ford booth, and we just had to have that truck, and we still have it today. It's got 280-some thousand miles on it today.
Yep.
But how many tools do you think have been hooked to that thing?
Well, several.
I know I've hooked several to it, and so have you. But over the the last 5 years or however long it's been, we've sent you guys everywhere delivering stuff. We've stayed back and sold and assembled and here and there. What part of that is your favorite? Where all have you been? Let's dig into the delivery side of what you guys do today.
Well, I always tell the farmer if he's there when we pull in, I said, well, they'll ask, how was your trip? And I'll say, well, this is the best part of the trip, getting to talk to someone.
Yeah.
You don't always get to do that, but talking to people and getting to know them is a lot of fun, and enjoy that. But how many places we've been to, I still have in mind. I have a map that I have marked every spot on it that we have delivered to.
Yep.
And I want to put it on a big map someday and put pins in,
Yep.
But that day has not come yet. I have not done that. But I would like to do that, maybe hang that in the shop or in the office somewhere.
Yep.
But we've enjoyed that part of it very much. It's very, very rewarding to pull into a guy's place with a brand new piece of equipment or a good used piece of equipment that he's bought, and say, here it is. This is your new tool.
Yep.
And most of the time, when the farmer's there, why, they're ready to greet you, and we enjoy it very much.
Yeah.
Margie goes with me, and she enjoys it, and
We pack a cooler. We pack a cooler and eat out of the cooler. We don't take the time to stop and go in anywhere, but many times we're too big
Right.
to go in anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just so enjoyable. We really have enjoyed doing this together.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, especially maybe the trips out eastern Ohio.
Yeah, those are really pretty nice.
So what's out in eastern Ohio?
Oh, in Eastern Ohio, they've just got some really nice little quaint shops, some nice places to stay. We've just really enjoyed going that area. One trip that's kind of really stands out for me, and this was several years ago, was in Nebraska. And we got into a snowstorm, and it was something. But it was one that we won't forget.
Yeah. Is it the same Nebraska trip I'm thinking of?
It might be, probably.
Yeah. Well, I think we bought 4 toolbars on an auction one time. Whoever put me in charge of that, they need fired. But I think I bought 4 3-point anhydrous toolbars from a co-op. And they were fine bars to an extent, but we sent Grandma and Grandpa out there, and my first mistake was on the auction rules. It said, they had to be out of there within X amount of hours. I should have just called them and told them we'd be out there in a couple weeks. Well, anyway, we sent you guys out there, and we said, how are we going to get them all on there? I said, well, we'll just kind of stack them, just keep stacking. Well, Grandma and Grandpa get to Nebraska, and it's 3 p.m. and we get a phone call, and it's Grandpa. He's saying this ain't gonna work, and Dad's on the phone looking at me saying Grandpa's on the phone, and he says that it ain't gonna work, and they're in Nebraska, and I'm thinking, oh man, what have I done? And I'm starting to think of ways to get us out of this, and I said, well, we have another trailer here. I'll just hook to it, and I'll head for Nebraska. And so, sure enough, that was 3 o'clock. Of course, back then I wasn't married, didn't have any kids, and I think within a half hour I was headed west. I don't think I slept that night, and I met you guys at the co-op that morning. And I kid you not, you guys had toolbars stacked 20 feet high on that trailer. It's a good thing. It's a good thing you didn't head for Ohio. But we got them. We got the toolbars, put a couple of them on my trailer, got some on yours. But yeah, I'll remember that one.
And I was always the one that said, are you sure we're not too high? Are you sure we can get through these overpasses? And that's been kind of a joke with us.
Yeah.
Because yes, everything's fine, everything's strapped down good enough.
Just keep looking ahead, right?
Yeah. Just don't look back.
What do you think is one of the furthest trips you've been on?
Probably Nebraska's been quite a distance. There've been
We were in Denver, or not Denver, we were in Colorado for a pickup there at one point. I remember calling this guy and said, I had his address, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense when I put it in my GPS, and so I called him, and he said, well, go to exit so-and-so off of Route 80 and just turn left, which would be, we would be going south. And he said the first 20 mile will be blacktop, and the next 20 mile will be dirt road. Okay. So we take off and we go down 80 and turn off and hit the blacktop and get to the end of that, and we hit the dirt road, and I mean, it was harvest time. They were harvesting corn, and the dust on the road was just like fluffy snow.
Yeah.
You'd drive through it and you'd leave a track about 5-6 inches deep. And those big semis were coming down the road at us, and the dust was just so thick you couldn't see. You had to stop. And man, now this is some way to do it, but we made it.
Yeah.
We got through it. We got to the guy's place and turned around and got back out of there. But
Yep.
that was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Different than most roads.
Yeah. How many states? Do you know how many states you've been to?
Oh,
I don't
man.
think we really kept track of that.
A lot.
I'd have it on the map if I had
you had that
everything
finished,
mapped out.
right?
But yeah,
We've had a
It's-
few trips where we didn't get home when we thought. We weren't prepared to spend the night, but we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we started doing the trips, with that Ford that we talked about, and then we made a purchase there, a year or so ago.
right.
Tell us about that.
I kind of put a little bit of heat on the guys, and I said, "Hey, we need a bigger truck." And so we bought a semi-tractor, a Freightliner, a used one, and put a tow hitch on the fifth wheel and mounted it on the frame back there. And then we did a lot of our towing with that, and which it worked out well. And then in the meantime, we purchased a drop deck flatbed trailer, and we've been using that. So that has been a big help, as far as making the deliveries and getting around with everything. And I know the semi truck purchase was something that I know at times Gary probably didn't think it was needed, but I think, looking back and everything, it's made it a lot safer for us. And
Yeah.
I just checked the other day. I think we've put close to 30,000 miles on that thing here just in the first year.
I was going to
Really?
say I can't imagine doing what we're doing right now without
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I can imagine doing it without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When-
No way.
Of course, I've never even driven a semi or really rode in one until we got the one. So when the idea came of getting a semi, I didn't really know what would change, so I didn't, but man, today there's no way we would do it without it.
No way.
Right.
Yeah.
That we've got one of those pro tote hitches that goes into the gooseneck ball, and you tow something like that in halftime, you really don't even know it's back there in
That's
a
right.
way. And when it comes to braking and all that,
Yeah, it just makes it a lot safer and everything.
right, you sit up a lot higher, you can see better.
Right.
Yeah.
Grandpa has really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I enjoy the driving, the deliveries. Like last week, we made 3 trips down here, and then on Monday, I delivered that applicator to western Indiana, almost Illinois, and
Yep.
I'm ready to go again.
I asked him,
Off
I said,
check
do you
my
get
phone.
tired? Do you get tired of driving like this? No, I love it. I love it. And you can tell that, and it gives him something to do, and yes, he does. He really
Right.
enjoys it.
I was going to say, I need to check my phone. I just got an address today to take, the 13-row applicator that you picked up from the fast applicator. Gosh dang it, their name is going to slip me right now. The brothers in Southern Ohio.
On the other side of Columbus.
They got a brand new,
Yeah, I know who
they
you
got a
mean.
Salford tool.
Yeah, I know who you mean now, but I can't.
Porteous Brothers.
Yeah, Porteous.
Yes.
Yeah.
The tool you brought home from them goes over to Indiana,
Oh,
Indianapolis region. So I just
Okay.
got an address on that today.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, we got one for you next week.
Okay.
It keeps me busy keeping up with him.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Of course, we enjoy. Growing up, I went to college. Really wasn't sure what I was going to be, and when I got out of school, I really didn't know what I was going to be, because that was right at kind of time that the equipment was starting to take off. It was starting to get some traction, and I was playing around with it in college. I was helping with a lot of the advertisements. I was kind of on Ag Talk doing some stuff, finding some guys, and I would go to the shows. But you know, at the time, it's like, do I get out of college, just spent 4 years studying animal science, obviously have a good bit of money invested in learning about animals, and I'm going to jump in with Dad in a venture that really at that time didn't have a whole lot of traction. It was real, right? But we were still peddling some row cleaners at the time.
Right.
And so I really didn't know what I was going to do. But it, so what I'm getting at is all I've known is a family business. I come to work and I go to my grandma and grandpa's house to work and run into my uncles and run into my mom and dad. If I want to go see them, I just go to work. I'll drive past their house and go to work.
Yeah.
And but it's been great. And so when we go to family gatherings, we basically go to work, but we just go in the house, and so I've always enjoyed it, and being able to it's always funny when a guy will say, well, when's your driver coming with my tool? I said, oh, Grandpa will be there in an hour. And they say, Grandpa? Yeah, my grandpa. And a lot of guys who may not know us or know me, they just think I'm, I just work at a dealership, right? But in